Hi everyone, this is Cheryl and welcome to my sewing room. I'm starting a new beginner's quilt. It is called the Beginner's Botanical Quilt. There's going to be 9 blocks in all, about 12.5 inches square. Every 1 to 2 weeks or so, a new block will be released. The blocks, for an example, will be an orange, as you see here, apple, strawberry, even some flowers thrown in, just to name a few. If you have been thinking about learning how to quilt, this is a great opportunity. I will take you through every step from beginning to end. I will not leave you hanging. The supplies are simple. Use up your scraps. If you don't have a scrap pile, just buy fat quarters, sometimes just 1/8 of a yard, maybe a little more. Every block will have different colors in it, so don't buy a lot of fabric ahead. The background, though, I suggest make it white, and I'm going to use up my white scraps. They've all got a different print in it. I hope you take this project on. You will learn a lot. Be sure to subscribe so that you can receive the email notifications as the latest block video is released. The tools that I recommend you use is a 12.5 inch square ruler. I can't stress the purchase of this one enough. It will save you a lot of trouble in the end. I also suggest you purchase a long ruler. This is 24 inches. You can buy the 6.5 inch width one or the 8.5 like I have here. Also, a rotary cutter. If you're just new at this, just buy the 45 millimeter, and you will probably need to buy an extra package of blades. I suggest if you have a Walmart near you and it carries fabric and other sewing tools, you will find these in there, and they can be as much as a half cheaper than you could get at Joann Fabrics and Crafts and even on the internet on Amazon. So price compare. But Walmart has these same tools at a very reasonable price. This is a cutting mat that you must have if you're using a rotary cutter. Again, check out Walmart. They are very inexpensive when you compare them to Joann's or Amazon or other sewing supply websites. Which one should you pick? The biggest one you can afford. This is really little. I don't recommend this one. Try to get one that is at least 36 inches long, because it's going to be very difficult to work on one any shorter than that. Now let's get started on block number 1, the orange. This is the layout for block number 1, and it is the orange. The finished size of this block is 12.5 inches square. You'll see that there are letters in the spaces. Those reflect the fabrics that you are to use in those areas. A is the main part of the orange, C is the green leaf, and B is your background color. For the orange fabric, cut 12 2.5 inch squares, and they can be all different colors of orange or all the same color. And 2 3.5 inch squares. Your background, 3 3.5 inch squares, 1 4.5 inch square, 1 4.5 by 6.5 inch square, or rectangle I should say, and 2 2.5 inch by 8.5 inch rectangles. For the green leaf, which is identified by the letter C, you'll need 1 3.5 inch square. Take your 2 3.5 inch orange fabrics, which is fabric A, and your fabric C green fabric, and place background fabric 3.5 inch squares, front sides together with all of your pieces. Then take a ruler, line it up corner to corner and draw a line. And do this on all 3 pieces. Then on each side of the line, you're going to go over 1/4 inch and stitch. And then on the other side, go over 1/4 inch and stitch. Then you're going to take all of your pieces, line your ruler up on the drawn line, and cut them in half. Then you're going to press your seams. After they're all pressed, then you want to cut these down to size 2.5 inch square. So take your ruler, and in the middle of the ruler is a diagonal line that goes from corner to corner. Place that line right on top of your seam and center the 2.5 inch area here, because here's my 2.5 inch line here and here, and you want a little bit of fabric hanging out past all those edges. So go ahead and trim one side and then trim the other side. After that, now take this corner and bring it around over to here. Place your diagonal line back on there. Place your 2.5 inch line here and here on the previously 2 cut edges, and making sure that diagonal line is still on there. So always take your time when you're squaring your blocks up, because then you don't have to redo them again. And cut your last side. Now you want to do that to all of your half square triangles. Bring the 2 leaf squares in this direction here. Bring them front sides together and then stitch 1/4 inch. Press the seam on the back and then unfold and press the seam all in one direction. Now take your 4.5 by 6.5 piece and your 4.5 inch square. Now these are your background fabrics. So you're going to stitch them together. So bring it on top, line it up, stitch 1/4 inch seam, then bring this one on top, line it up and stitch 1/4 inch seam. After stitching, press the seams on the back side. Then after pressing the seams on the back side, press these seams going towards the leaf block. And you want to press that on top because you'll get a much nicer press. Take all of your orange 2.5 inch squares and place 2 in the first row and 2 in the bottom row. And then the other 8 in the center, and place your half square triangles in this direction, in the 2 top corners and the 2 bottom corners. Take 1 row at a time and stitch them together. So you bring front sides together, stitch 1/4 inch, and you would just keep going on down the row, attaching them together. Press the seams, and I always like to press each individual seam on the back side first. Then after you've done that, you want to press all the seams going in one direction. And what I like to do is hold the strip up and then push against that seam with your iron and just go straight down the row. Now let me show you one thing here. Each row, the seams are going in the opposite direction of the previous row. For instance, the seams are going this way here, row 2, the opposite, row 3, this way, and row 4, that way. Stitch the rows together. So bring them front sides together. And as you're pinning them, and I advise you to pin them, is to make sure that the seam on the bottom and top are going in opposite directions. This is real important. This is going to help make your block lay really flat. So match those seams up, get them in there nice and tight, and I recommend you pin the seam so it doesn't move while you are stitching. After you have pinned all of your seams, then go ahead and stitch 1/4 inch seam along here. After you have done this row, then you would go to the next row, attach it, matching the seams, and then go and attach the last row. Press your seams on the back side. Take each one individually and press it. That flattens the seam out. Then on the front side, you're going to press the seams on top, but as you press, lift one edge of the block and push against the seams, pressing them all in one direction. And as you can see, these are all going in one direction. And it doesn't matter if they're going north or south, just as long as they're all in one direction. Take the 2.5 by 8.5 inch background pieces and stitch it on opposite sides. And line up your edges, stitch 1/4 inch seam, bring this one on top, and stitch 1/4 inch seam. Then press the seams on the back side, unfold, and press them on top, and you're going to press this seam towards the orange fabric. Next step is to attach this row. So you want to bring it front sides together and make sure that this point is in this center seam here, and bring it on top, and remember to match your seams. This is real important. Make sure that the one on the bottom and the one on top are going in opposite directions, and pin the seams in place, and then stitch 1/4 inch seam. Then press the seam on the back side, unfold, and press on top. And at this point, it doesn't really matter if you press it towards the orange or away. I found it a little easier because of all these different seams here to press the seam toward the top row. This is what the block should look like when you are done. After making any quilt block that you're working on, you should always take your ruler, and this is a 12.5 inch square ruler, and if you think you're going to get into quilting, you will find that you use this ruler a lot. You truly will. So it's worth the investment. It'll save you a lot of headache and heartache later on. So I always like to place my ruler on top of my block just to see how far off I might be. And usually I am. It's very rare when making a quilt block that you're dead on to 12.5 inches square. A few times I get lucky, but there's always one little area that's slightly off. If your block is just slightly off here and there, don't worry about that so much. At the very end of this quilt process that I'm taking you through, I'll show you how to get all of your blocks squared together. And if you want to jump ahead a little bit and preview that, then click on the link in the upper right hand corner that says how to square a quilt block. You will find it very helpful. So that you can keep current on all of the Botanical Quilt blocks as they are released, play this video all the way to the end where a green screen will appear. And in the upper left-hand corner of that screen will be a playlist that will list all of the videos as they are released. If you like this video, please click on thumbs up and also click on share to share this video with your friends. And if you haven't subscribed yet, then click on that red button down there in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. Click on that little bell and then enter your email address so that you'll receive future email notifications about my latest video. If you don't seem to be receiving those notifications, go to your cell phone, click on Settings, and set notifications in the on position. I'm Cheryl. This is Manny. Thanks again for coming by. See you next time. Happy sewing!